Hey everyone, it's Hannah. I wanted to quickly ask if you are enjoying the podcast, please leave us a 5-star review. It goes a long way in getting the show in front of other listeners. If you listen on a platform that doesn't do reviews, please follow us on social media, like the show, or leave a comment. Thank you. We love you guys, and we hope you enjoy the show. Nice. I was like, watch your eye. You're listening to The Tales We Tell, a podcast about spooky stories, unsolved mysteries, and local lore. I'm your host, Hannah Parch.
And I'm Katy.
Welcome back. This is like the first time we've ever not really had too much chit-chat.
Yeah.
Because we have good chit-chat to record.
Yeah. Well, that, and I think it's Sunday, it's late. Mm-hmm. I just got back in town from vacation, and then I've got a lot of work to do this week because we're turning around and going right back on vacation. Like, I know that it's like, oh, boo-hoo, complaining about vacation. No, it's everyone knows. If you're an adult, you know that vacation is work.
Yes. True. Do you want to tell everyone about your cute child and his because that's another thing you have to keep up with at home.
We went to the beach this week, and we had a great time. A couple friends came with their kids. We went to the actual beach.
Nice.
Critter hates it.
Love that for him.
Like, we went twice. The first time, it was 10 out of 10. I'm not okay with this.
Right.
And we only lasted for like 10 minutes. The plan was to literally just go and walk along the beach for just a few minutes anyway. He was not down. Okay. Then we went back the next day, and we're like, all right, we're going to try this again. Like, maybe it was just, sometimes he takes repeat exposures to things before he's okay.
Right.
No. I think he's got some sensory issues.
Okay.
He hates sand.
Yeah.
I also hate sand. So
yeah.
I'm just like, that seems actually perfectly normal to me.
Yeah.
And I think also it was the water, like the waves rushing at him, like it's very loud.
Yeah.
Especially the first day we were there, it was bad waves. There was like a no swimming advisory, and so seeing the roaring of the noise, and then watching this, he didn't know, come at him.
Yeah.
And we were all just standing there, and also he doesn't like unstable surfaces to stand on, so he was just like, okay, there is a lot of things wrong with this situation, and I am not here for it. And it was kind of like, I'm sure you've seen the pictures, but it's been over a year since, it happened. When we first brought him to the cabin, we got his little 6-week-old little feetsies in the creek, but it was real cold. And so the next time I went to go, we went to go drop him, put his feet in the water, he scrunched his feet up as high as he could get them. Yeah, he did that again at the ocean. He was like,
smart.
Nope, do not put me on that sand. No, I don't want it. I hate it. Oh, he was even not happy. So it was pitiful. But he loved the pool. He is still a water baby.
Still a water baby, just not
the ocean. The funniest and most impressive thing, though, the real story here, happened tonight after we got home. After bath. Playing. Getting ready for bed. I have a baby Houdini, a junior escape artist, because he's so smart.
Can he get out of his crib?
Not yet.
Okay, good.
That's because he's not that much of a climber yet, but he is starting to get into climbing things.
Don't leave anything too tall in his crib.
Case in point.
Yeah.
There's a box of diapers that was in his room that I hadn't put in his closet yet that he pushed over to his baby gate, then climbed and stood on top of, reached up and grabbed the mechanism of his baby gate, like lifted up the latch, climbed back off of the diaper box, moved them out of the way, and then opened his baby gate.
Smart kid. And then,
it's like Tommy Pickles from Rugrats.
I know. And then, left the room and closed it back
in. Need to check his diaper for screwdrivers.
Oh.
He's so smart. Then again, this is also the kid that eats bubbles, so. Well. He'll stick the wand in the bubbles and then stick it in his mouth. And then he does this thing, sticks his tongue out. You know, kind of like, have you ever seen a dog chatter?
Oh, yeah.
Kelly eats something or just gets so excited. Mm-hmm. And you just...
Yeah, it's adorable.
It's the same thing, but a baby.
Man, good times.
Sorry to monopolize everyone's time with my critter, but...
We love critter talk.
He's a menace. So smart.
I do have 2 announcements.
Let's hear them.
And then I have an explanation for today's episode, as I always do. They're just 2 shout-outs. The first one is we had a listener named Jason who is... I don't think I've actually ever met him, but he is the brother of my friend John, who we used to work together at the Olive Garden when I was in high school.
Nice.
But Jason messaged me to let me know that they grew up in Newark and were very familiar with Hydesville. And I was like, have you been to the house? And he was like, yeah, we used to drive by it. And he said he thought John had been there with his friends before. So I was like, very cool. Still wish I had done that episode before we had gone up to New York so that we could take our little trip. Also, I found out, okay, this is how Jarek told me this. He said, I was walking Kelly the other day and I heard Katy's voice. We have neighbors who listen to the podcast.
Oh my goodness.
I know.
That's awesome.
I know. Their names are Esmir and Chad. I have not met them, but I really want to. And I just haven't met them because I'm lazy and I don't take Kelly for her walks.
It's been awful hot.
I know. It has been very hot. Jarek knows where they live, so I'm sure that I will meet them soon. But hello, guys. Thank you for listening. I guess Jarek said that he told them about the podcast when we moved in. And they, I guess, started listening and graciously have continued listening. So, yeah.
It's one of those weird things where it's like, oh my gosh, people like us?
I know. I'm still... Anytime I truly am under the impression that we have 10 listeners.
And they're mostly family.
When I meet one of them, I'm like, wow, this is great.
Out in the wild.
Out in the wild. Okay, that's it. Those are all my announcements.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so today's episode, I don't know if it really qualifies under any of our topics. And this is how my brain got here. I was still trying to find topics that were not super dark.
Did you fail?
No, this one's not. Well, I don't know. You might. Well, we'll talk about it. A lot of people die, but but
that's not dark.
But you'll see what I mean. In that way, it qualifies. And so I was looking around. I heard kind of a brief-ish explanation of this on another podcast, and I was like, ooh, that sounds cool. I'll look it up. And then I did, and I kind of started doing my notes. And then I kind of got most of the way through my notes before I was like, this is kind of more of just a fun story I want to tell, and not... It's kind of unsolved. We're going to go with Unsolved Mystery, but I promise I'm going to get back onto some spooky shit. I don't know. I feel like you'll enjoy the story. But you know what? It's our podcast.
Well, stop talking about it and tell me the story.
Okay. I'm going to tell you the story of the Franklin Expedition. Okay. So, in the 15th century, don't worry, we're taking a brief stop there.
Okay.
We're not living there. We're not mingling.
Opening scene.
15th century Europe. The continent, the people. Europeans are trying to find a sea passage from Europe to Asia because they want a shortcut. I don't think that there is one, right? The quickest way from Europe to Asia is just land because it's connected, right?
Well, I mean, yes,
Okay.
it is. It is connected.
Okay.
But it's not necessarily quick because it's a lot of land. There's a lot of area that is uninhabited, and there's also lots of mountain ranges. Very, very big mountain ranges.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
So, and very dangerous mountain ranges.
True.
And if you're trying to, like, move a lot of cargo and stuff, which they were,
right,
really difficult to get through mountain passes.
Well, in 15th century, this is kind of before we knew what was west. So I think they were just thinking, let's just sail west and we'll hit Asia eventually. And then they were like, oh, there's more land over here. Let's take it. Anyways.
Because that's why Native Americans were for so long, way too long, referred to as Indians because they were originally trying to get to India.
Yay.
Been there.
Okay, so Europeans are just trying to find their way to Asia, and this eventually led to exploration of the Arctic. And eventually that led to a search for a northwest passage connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans through the Arctic Ocean. Which, okay, sure. I guess once you figure out that there is a large landmass in the way of your original plan, and you find out that there is an ocean up above all of that, yes, but Arctic Ocean in its name sounds very cold and icy and not fun. That's just me.
Me also.
Okay.
Not a fan.
Okay, just
I don't do the cold.
I do, and also, well, not that cold. Side note.
I do the cool. I do the fall, and then I stop at fall and go back to spring for a little bit, and then I go back to fall. But the rest of the world's all like, no, let's boil in the summer and breeze in the winter, and let's not have either fall or spring.
Side note, I have found my ideal country that I'd like to live in.
And which country is this?
Iceland. Let me tell you why. 2 reasons. Safest country in the world. Like 6 people a year die there. I mean, like, get murdered there. I'm sure more people die there a year, but
yes,
6 people a year get murdered. 6 people a year get murdered. It's like extremely low crime rate. The weather is like my ideal weather range. And like, someone correct me if I'm wrong, because I did a very cursory search of this. But from what I read, the lows, like year-round, are like high 20s. Like winter lows are like high 20s. Summer highs, high 50s. I was like, oh, give me that year round. I will take sweater weather all year round.
I need you to add 20 degrees to both of those ends.
That's perfect for me. I love it. You get some snow.
I remember singing, is it Anthony Bourdain's show? I don't remember which of his shows it was. Maybe it was Parts Unknown. But he was in Iceland, and he freaking hated it.
No.
Like, he was at one of, like, the steam baths or, like, one of the spas or something. And he was just standing outside in a big puffy coat, snow all around, smoking a cigarette, just non-stop. Like, he was just ranting and bashing Iceland.
Okay, well, you know what? Not for everyone.
It was hilarious.
Also, isn't Iceland the only country that doesn't have mosquitoes?
It might not be the only country, but...
Listen, good for me.
Yeah, me too. Mosquitoes love me.
Yeah, see?
I say as I scratch my foot.
Reason number 3, phantom scratches. Okay, sorry. Iceland does not have any part in this story other than the fact that I looked it up while I was...
And it's up there in the Arctic Ocean area.
Yeah, cold. Okay, so the Northwest Passage. Okay, so by 1845, the Pacific and the Atlantic entrances to this passage had been found and, like, charted, but the actual middle part was yet to be completely figured out. There was only about 70,000 square miles left to explore, and the next expedition was going to cover about 1,040 miles of that. By the way, this is a great opportunity for me to say, because you're going to have a dossier that you can look at in a minute. Not yet. You'll get a map eventually.
Good, because I was about to pull my maps up on my phone.
Yeah, don't worry. But I would encourage everyone to either Google the Franklin Expedition map, unless you are just super familiar with, like, the Canadian waters, or look at our Instagram at the pictures that I will post with the little charted section. Just to also maybe take notes. There's a lot of names and dates. I don't know. I'm going to try to keep it really clear. Okay. So the next expedition. So this guy named John Barrow was the head of the Royal Navy. He served from 1804 to 1845. So this is his last year as the head, and he's going to put together this expedition. So he ends up naming this guy Sir John Franklin as the commander. You can look, he's your first picture. John Franklin was 59 when he was named commander of the Franklin expedition. He was Barrow's 6th choice for commander.
Yeah. He definitely doesn't look like he would be anybody's first choice. No offense, Sir John, but...
Well, let me tell you.
I mean, I'm sure he's probably an okay dude, but, like, if you're gonna go do an expedition in, like, the frozen tundra...
You want
someone maybe a little younger, a little fitter?
Well, and also, I don't want to be, like...
With less scary eyes?
Well, and I don't want anyone's 6th choice to be leading me through the Arctic. So his first choice, I didn't write this guy's name down because he's not important. His first choice was like, I'm tired of the Arctic, so I don't want to do it. His second choice was like, I actually promised my wife that I would stop exploring the Arctic, so no. Which, good on you for keeping your promises to your wife.
I love that these are still...
His third choice was a guy named James Fitzjames. Love the name. He was too young because he was only 32. Just a little baby at 32. His fourth choice was too argumentative. And his fifth choice was a guy named Francis Crozier, which I did not look up how to say his name. He was of, quote, humble birth, and also he was Irish. So obviously he could not leave.
We cannot have an Irishman, like, in charge of anything, obviously.
Yeah.
Because we look down on them for some reason.
Yes, obviously. So Franklin is the commander. They get 2 ships for this. The ships are the HMS Erebus and the HMS Terror, which...
I called dibs on that one.
Don't name your ship that. It's so scary.
The Aramis, is it from the Three Musketeers?
I have no idea. I didn't look it up. Is that a Three Musketeers thing?
Well, it depends on how it's spelled, I guess.
Erebus.
Oh, Erebus.
Erebus. What did I say?
I heard Aramus.
Oh, no. Erebus. So Franklin was the captain of the Erebus, and then Crozier, our Irish guy of humble birth, he was the captain of the Terror. He was also named executive officer, so he was like the Dwight Schrute of the group. So he was assistant to the
regional expedition leader.
Yes. And then Fitzjames, our too young to be in charge, was the second in command of the Erebus. So they're your next 2 pictures if you want to see pictures of them. Fitzjames is kind of cute, in my opinion.
In my head, he's cute.
Yeah.
For some reason, just because he's young.
A silly name, but, you know, not a bad-looking guy. He kind of looks like
he looks like he has a good humor.
He looks like he could be in a Jane Austen novel.
Yeah.
And should be.
Yeah,
rightfully so. Okay, so we've got Franklin, Crozier, Fitzjames, the Erebus, and the Terror.
This is reminding me, every time you say Fitzjames, I think of St. James.
Who's that?
From with Mo's dad.
Oh! I was like, who's that?
It took me a minute because I'm like, St. James as a first name. I know that. Is that a character in a book that I've read recently? It's hard to tell because I've read hundreds of books recently.
It would be funny if his name was St. James Fitzjames. That would it'd be mean.
Yeah. It's too much.
But it's funny because, I mean...
It's kind of like I'll never name my kid Mike if it's a boy. I've always liked the name Micah if it, for a girl.
Uh-huh.
But I can't use Mike or Micah with the last name Hunt.
Oh, yeah, you can't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sucks. Mm-hmm. It took me a second, but yeah, you're right. No, kids would figure that out much, much faster than it took me. Yeah, my sister, Jarek and I are talking about, we're going back and forth on boy names because that's the one thing we can't ever decide on. And he asked me what I thought of the name Jack the other day. And that was actually a name my sister liked when she was, 100 years ago when she was having kids. By the way, my oldest nephew had his first driving lesson today.
Gosh. So yeah, it really was like 100 years ago.
Tell me.
I'm sure your sister definitely feels that way sometimes.
I know. I was like, did you take him driving in the same place where we learned to drive? And she was like, yes. And I was like, oh. Anyways. But her last name is Hoffert. And so she did not want a child whose first name was Jack and last name was Hoffert. Like Jack off. But I don't think I have that problem with my last name, so I think we're good.
Nope, you should be fine.
Anyways, so the ships, the Erebus and the Terror, were equipped with state-of-the-art steam engines, which were actually converted from locomotives. And this was...
hella steampunk.
I know, right? This was to help them when, winds could not suffice. They had reinforced bows to help with the ice, I guess. They had internal steam heating. They also had iron wells that allowed the propellers and the rudders to be taken in and protected from the ice when needed. They also had libraries containing over 1,000 books.
I don't know how I feel about that. Because I am all for, books and reading. I highly doubt that most of the crew really, had the time to sit around and read books. Might also not have had the education to read said books.
Yeah.
And third, very importantly, what happens if these ships sink?
That's a great question. We're just hoping that they were all copies of books.
Yeah. Copies.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's like the only entertainment that you have. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess I would, if you're planning to be gone.
Music, singing, dancing.
Well, yeah, but
card games, gambling.
If you're planning on being gone for 2 or 3 years, I would bring a couple books at least.
Oh, for sure. Before I got a Kindle, I would bring 4 or 5 books for a week-long trip. Not because I'd read them all that fast, but I wanted my
variety,
options.
Yeah.
I'm I don't know. I'm gonna finish this one for sure while I'm gone, but which one do I want to start next?
Yeah, exactly. I totally understand that. And then besides the books, they also had 3 years worth of food, which I'm going to tell you about now. So
are you gonna give me another list like we did for was it Ostman?
Yep.
Pancake mix.
Well, I'm gonna see if you know what one of them was because I had to look up one.
Okay.
So they had salt cured meat, cooked beef and pork, canned soup and vegetables, I'm going to say this wrong, Pemmican?
It sounds vaguely familiar.
I think it's like a... It's like... I think it's like if you took all those things and mushed them all together into one. Okay. I don't know. It also sounded a lot like an owl pellet to me, so I don't know. The way it was described. And the way it looked. They also had live cattle, which included sheep, pigs, and hens. So really exciting for the guys that had eggs. To take care of that. Yeah. I bet that part of the ship smelled real nice. And they also had 930 gallons of lemon juice for the scurvy.
Yep.
So if anyone remembers playing Oregon Trail, did you play that?
Oh,
okay.
All
right. I'm just making sure you didn't.
Hell yeah.
You didn't give me the eyes or anything.
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay. So if anyone, I guess, is younger than...
I was thinking of a different reference than Oregon Trail, so...
Well, I guess if anyone didn't grow up in the American public school system or is younger than, I don't know, 30, Oregon Trail was a great game that taught us about... Dysentery and scurvy, where you would gather your fictional family and put them on a covered wagon and travel the Oregon Trail and face all sorts of difficulties like...
it was like a choose-your-own-adventure book, but it was a game.
Yeah.
And so...
But it was like 1999.
Yes. And so, like, you would get to a post or, you know, like an outpost or something. It's like, okay, you have this many people, like this many mouths to feed. You know, these are your current supplies. This is how much money you have. And so it's like, okay, it's a strategy game of like, all right.
What do you want to buy? Yeah,
it's like, well, we're running really low on food because Timmy broke his leg and it put us behind like a week.
Yeah.
So...
And you chose to stop and pick up Timmy when he fell off the wagon instead of leaving him behind, which was an option.
Yeah, stuff like that. Or, you know, you chose to ford the river.
Yeah.
And,
which you risked losing an oxen.
But, yeah, you lost one of your oxen and several of your backup, you know, axles and supplies.
Yep.
So you got to get more.
Yep. But sometimes people would get scurvy, and the way to cure it was you give them lemons or something.
Citrus.
Yeah. And if you didn't have those in your supplies, then you were just shit out of luck, and someone in your family was going to die of scurvy. So, they had a bunch of lemon juice, and each man was allotted 1 ounce per day to stay.
So just a shot of lemon
Just
juice.
a shot. They were just doing lemon shots. Lemon drops. Yeah.
I love lemon juice in my water.
Gross.
Fancy.
Sorry, fancy. Maybe they were doing that, putting it in there. Pour a shot of lemon juice into your water in the morning. And
do you not do that, like, on the regular?
No, I hate lemon in my water. I'm that person at the restaurants that says, I'll have a water without lemon, please.
No, but anytime you get dinner with me, you have to get the lemon so you can give it to Critter because he just loves eating lemons.
And it is adorable.
It's so funny.
So the person who, or I guess it was a company that provided most of the food for them, was a provisioner named Stephen Goldner, and I'm assuming he had a company that did this. But he had been given the contract for this 7 months before the ships were to set sail. So he kind of had to rush to get all of these things done, and he was canning all of the, like, most of the stuff. And, like, canning was also fairly new. It wasn't, like, super, like, tin cans.
Perfected.
Yeah, not, like, bell jars.
Yeah.
But, like, tin cans. And so, as a result, a lot of the canning was rushed, and they had some sloppy soldering going on with some of the cans.
So it's soldering.
Oh, it said soldering. Oh, is that how you pronounce it? Soldering? Dang. Really? Okay. Wow.
Let's do a Google pronunciation for
more
you.
things. I thought soldering and soldering were different things.
Soldering.
Wow. Well, it should be spelled differently. That's dumb. Welding. Is it the same as welding? Kind of? No.
It's similar.
Similar.
I mean, welding is like the joining and fusing of like two, I think specifically metals together, where soldering is joining two materials together with metal.
With metal. That makes sense.
So like, I have a soldering iron that I've wanted to try stained glass as a craft or hobby. So yeah, I have a soldering iron.
Okay. Great.
That was meh.
I'm going to add that to my list with scythe. Soldering.
It's like a friend I had in school. She pronounced, instead of foliage, she'd accidentally, I don't know if she just read it and didn't read it properly, or for some reason thought, but she would call it foliage.
I can see that.
And
foliage.
She was saying something in class about, you know, the foliage, but she was saying the foliage, and the professor was like, foliage. And she looked at him and was like, foliage. I'm like, yep, got it. And he was like, foliage. And she just wasn't hearing the difference.
Yeah.
So it was like back and forth.
Yeah.
He kept saying foliage, and she kept being like, yeah, right, foliage.
I mean, like, you could kind of argue that she's just kind of slurring two of those syllables a little bit. I can see it. I just watched a TikTok recently where I do know how I started following this guy. He's like a lawyer, but he also is just like a silly dad. But he was filming something with his wife in the car and found out, like, apparently organically, that she's been calling, like, when someone calls the bathroom the lavatory, she thinks it's the laboratory. And he was, like, trying to tell her, because she's like, no, I was just on a plane, and they said if anyone needs to use the laboratory. And he's like, they did not say that. They said the lavatory. And she's like, no, they said the laboratory. And he was like, no, they didn't.
See, at least you don't argue with me.
That's true. I believe you. I believe whatever you tell me. Oh, man.
Yeah, I haven't been able to provide that pronunciation service in a while.
I know. Well, I don't know if you're going to... I'll ask you for some help a little bit later, because...
Well, see, I'm not good with, places I've never heard of or people's names I've never heard of.
There's some native names coming up that I'm going to need help with. I'm sure you're great with those.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
One of those back of my hand.
You know.
Hey, that's new.
Okay. All right, so sloppy soldering is where we left off. Okay. The crew was 24 officers and 110 men for 134 total, which I'm sorry, I have to make one more joke. And it's a bad joke. And I feel like I'm only allowed to make it because I'm a woman.
Is this between 134 between the two ships?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, total. Just the way that it was phrased, 24 officers and 110 men, it just reminds me at work. Do you know where I'm going with this?
No, but...
Oh. My coworker and I always joke, and he's a dude, so it's only okay when I say it. But we always joke. He'll say like, oh, there's a bunch of people there. I'm only 2 women.
That's right, because women aren't people.
And I forget, he said it once, like, as a joke, and now we just always, anytime someone has the chance to say, like, however many people, it's like, yeah, but how many women were there?
Well, it's like learning the, like, gender in a different language. Like, when I was learning French, some things are feminine, some things are masculine. And when you talk about groups of people, you always defer to masculine. Kind of like how we say, like, policemen.
Oh, yeah.
Weathermen. Mailmen. And it's like, it doesn't matter if it's 500 women and 1 dude.
Yeah.
It's masculine.
Yeah. Well, anyways, 24 officers and 110 men were on board these 2 ships. There is a disputed fact that 5 men were discharged due to illness before the actual voyage started. So I think the official number is 129. Okay. I don't know if it's true that 5 men were sent home, but I do think the official number starting out was 129.
Starting out.
Sorry. A little foreshadowing.
And hold on, was the word spoiler a spoiler? Because we are talking about faulty soldering of preserved foods.
I mean, I didn't tell you that fact for no reason, so...
Implying that certain things the food may have spoiled.
I mean, just keep everything I tell you in your head. Yeah. That's all I'm saying. That's why I said take notes, everyone. Also on board...
Remember when you used to provide me with a whiteboard?
I know. I really should get another one. Sometimes when I do my notes, I envision us with, like, a whiteboard or, like a... With the laser pointer? Yeah, with a laser pointer, so I can be like, and then over here, and then over here, and then keep this in mind over here. Because sometimes that's how I take my notes. So also on board, they had a monkey, which we hate, but Franklin's wife gave that to them as, like, a fun gift.
One more thing to take care of.
I know, and it's 1845, and that's when monkeys were, like, fun and novelty. Mm-hmm. They had a cat, because you gotta have...
so then you catch the mice.
As far as I could tell, they only had one cat, though, for 2 ships. So, I don't know. They just, like, tossed them back and forth. They're like, hey, the rats are getting really bad over here on the Erebus. Can we get Whiskers for a bit? They're like, yeah, hold on.
Just load them up in the cannon.
I don't know that... All I saw was one cat. And they also had a Newfoundland.
Yeah, Newfie.
Named Neptune. And I read that he was an old boy.
That is an awesome name for a dog.
I know, Neptune. So, I will tell you, I think that Neptune is okay. Not like today, but...
He long did now.
I believe in my heart that Neptune was fine.
Survived the voyage.
Or, like...
The expedition.
I'm just going to tell you... Well, we'll get to it, but
if he died, it was because he was an old boy, and he died peacefully of being an old boy.
I think that Neptune died of old age, happy and content. Somewhere. We'll get to. Just so that's not looming over you, because as soon as I read there was a dog on the ship, I was like, oh, no. I told Jarek, I was like, I just found out there was a dog on board. I need to find out what happened to him. He was like, okay, we'll find out what happened to the dog.
It's like the other day I was reading a book, and I was like, there's a very upsetting thing that happened in here, and it's... upsetting my feelings and my emotions, and there was not a trigger warning.
Oh no.
It was loss of a child.
Oh, geez.
In the book, and I'm like, okay, so I know that this book does have a happily ever after.
Yeah.
But I need to be left alone so that I can get to the happily ever after, because otherwise I'm going to be in a bad headspace.
Yeah. I feel that. Like how after this I'm going to have to go watch another episode of Shameless to get past that episode that we stopped on when you got here.
Yep.
Okay, so May 19th, 1845, they leave Kent, England. Mm-hmm. They stop briefly in Scotland, and then they go to Greenland, which took 30 days. While they're in Greenland, they kill 10 oxen for meat, I guess. And this is allegedly where the 5 men went home. They were like, ooh, we're sick. I gotta go home. And then in their last letters that the men sent home from Greenland, they reported that Captain Franklin, had banned swearing and drunkenness. I'm like, man,
does he know anything about boats and
what the
sailors?
hell kind of voyage is this? I feel like he did that, and then those 5 men were like, I'm sick. I can't go on this voyage anymore. Like, what's the point of being a sailor?
Right.
You can't swear? Come on. Okay, so you can look at your map now, and I have blanked out part of it, so as not to give away the whole thing. Okay, so in late July of 1845, they were seen by whalers in Baffin Bay, They were waiting there for improved weather conditions so that they could cross over to Lancaster Sound.
Can I just say how awesome it is that this is Disco Island?
I know, right?
And Disco Bay.
Yeah, so they're hanging out there before they cross that big expanse of water to go over to this other area.
Okay.
That was the last time that they were ever seen by Europeans alive. So, what we likely think happened.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, after crossing Baffin Bay, they sailed north around Cornwallis Island. So, I guess you can lift up your... I don't know why I moved those or covered them up. So, okay. So, they sailed north around Cornwallis Island. I'm unclear with this map. I think they went north and then it was too icy, and so they came back around on the other side of the island because they went north and then they just kind of circled the island and came back down. They spent the winter, so that first winter of 1845 and 46 at Beechy Island, which was not very beachy.
Can I pull this one off too yet?
No. And then during this first winter, 3 of their crew members died and were buried on the island. And those crew members were John Torrington, who was 20, John Harkness, who was 25, and William Bain, who was 32. And then, when the weather warmed enough, they sailed south. So yeah, you can remove the thing. I really don't know why I felt like this was going to take longer than it did. Really big reveal here. Okay, so they sail south, and then the following winter, so the winter of 46 and 47, they become trapped in the ice.
So wait, how long it takes them to get from Devon Island down to...
Well, I don't know how long it took them. So they spent
Because if they're wintering there and then they just get that far and they winter again, that's...
I mean, maybe 6 months? I don't know, because it...
should not take 6 months, even with old boats, right?
Well, you have to think, too, I'm sure even in the spring the water is icy, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just telling you the facts that I found.
I just feel like it only took them 30 days to get to Greenland.
Yeah, but that's what, crossing the Atlantic?
Greenland is a lot further from England than Greenland is from,
But they also know...
Devon Island?
They know that route. They don't know where any of this shit is. They don't know where anything is here. Everything is ice. They're just kind of bumbling their way around, hoping... Okay. They're are we in the Pacific Ocean yet? I don't know. Okay. The next winter, so the winter of 46, they get trapped in ice west of Somerset Island and the Boothia Peninsula. And then that summer, on June 11th of 1847, Franklin, their captain, dies. He dead. No autopsy is recorded, so I don't know if they did one and then didn't write it down. And he was likely... This said buried under the ice. I assume that means buried at sea.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, because his body was never found. They didn't find a grave or anything for him. And then at this point, Crozier takes over command. So he's now in charge. Now the ships are carried further south by winds and pack ice. This is, very confusing because the map makes it look like they kind of stay in one place, but I think they go a little further west or south. Mm-hmm. And then the following winter... So, another 6 months or so, I guess. Or, I guess, June.
No, this is, 47, 48.
Whatever. June to winter. Mm-hmm. 9 officers and 15 crew members die. And then that spring, April 22nd of 1848, which was Good Friday, Crozier decides that they are going to make landfall at King William Island and abandon the ships and carry on by foot. So his plan is they are going to travel to the southern part of King William Island. Mm-hmm. They're going to drag their lifeboats on sledges behind them. I don't know why they felt like they needed to do that, but that was the plan. And then they're going to cross to the mouth of the Back River on the mainland. And they were hoping that there was going to be an outpost there where they could find help. And their reasoning, or his reasoning for doing this and like abandoning the ships at this point, was because almost all of the crew was like extremely ill at this point. So they were losing weight. This is going to be called guess what they were all dying from. Okay. They were losing weight. They had bleeding gums, loose teeth, ecchymosis. I think that right. Discoloration of the skin caused by bleeding underneath the skin. Okay. Subcutaneous hematomas, bruising. Yeah. They were pale and they had shortness of breath. What are these signs of, Katie?
I feel like I should know, but I'm going to guess wrong.
The loose teeth is the... Bleeding gums and loose teeth is like the big one.
I'm going to feel dumb when you tell me.
Do you want to guess or do you want me to tell you?
Just tell me.
Scurvy.
I thought it was scurvy.
Yeah, it's the scurvy.
But they've been drinking their lemon juice.
They have been drinking their lemon juice, so I don't know what's going on. It's an unsolved mystery. What could it be?
Did they abandon their lemon juice when they abandoned the ships?
No. Everyone's like dying of scurvy. And so the men who were strong enough to travel were going to travel along the western coast of King William Island. King William Island? Is that what okay. I wrote it so many times, I was like beginning to think I was saying it wrong. And they were going to travel over the frozen water, like over the coast part of it instead of over the actual land because that was smoother. Everyone else who was not strong enough to travel was staying behind in death camps at the ships. They made the ships into death camps.
Essentially just wait here until you die.
Yeah. The Terror would eventually be completely abandoned the following year. The Erebus, this was very confusing to me. Allegedly, the Erebus would eventually like thaw out from the ice and sail west, ending up at the Royal Geographical Society Islands. I don't know where those are. But like, yeah, just imagine a bunch of men left behind dying, and the rest of them are just like hauling lifeboats full of miscellaneous supplies, trying to get to what they hope is an outpost that will help them. So the guys who are walking, the men who are walking, they averaged 1.5 miles a day.
I could do better than that.
Yeah, not good. I mean, maybe if you were dying of scurvy, you couldn't. But
and trudging through snow?
Yeah,
probably not.
Maybe not. None of them survived. All of them died. According to Inuit testimony later, they said that men would just fall over and die as they were walking.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. And they found about 30 or 40 bodies. Later, they were found near the Back River. So, like, a handful of them sort of made it, but, like, then they died. So, you decide whether that's making it or not.
Yeah. I'm not gonna say no.
Yeah. And where they were found was still hundreds of miles from the nearest outpost. So, like, even if they had survived and, like, made it that far, they were still hundreds of miles from, like, getting any kind of help. I don't really know how long that took. I was trying to find, like, a timeline. I do know that Crozier was recorded as dying in the winter of 49 and 50. So I'm thinking, like, maybe 6 months to a year. I don't know. Time is irrelevant.
Time means nothing.
Time means nothing. They were walking for a long time and a bunch of them died. So, I don't know. It wasn't like a week, so.
What do you call a pachyderm that doesn't matter?
I don't know.
Irrelevant.
Oh my gosh, my mom's been sending me a dad joke every day. It's the best. I highly recommend a parent doing that. Okay. In 1850, so no one's alive now. In 1850, at the urging of Lady Franklin, who was Franklin's wife.
Widow.
Sorry. Ooh, widow.
Did.
He did. So at her urging, and also members of Parliament were also wanting this to happen, the Royal Navy sent out a search party for the expedition, which the Royal Navy apparently was not super worried. They're like, they'll show up. It's fine. It's the Arctic.
It's just a frozen wasteland.
It's fine. They'll show up on...
Mostly uninhabited.
They're going around the world. They'll show up. We're looking the wrong direction. They'll show up behind us. So they launched an overland search party as well as 2 search parties by sea. They also offered a 20,000-pound reward, quote, to any party or parties of any country who shall render assistance to the crews of the Discovery ships under the command of Sir John Franklin. That's equivalent to 2.1 million pounds today. And spoiler, they didn't really mean any country.
Yeah.
They just
any country that we're cool with, sort of.
Yeah, they just really meant just the white ones. So spoiler alert, they weren't cool with... I mean, I don't know. I shouldn't say that. I mean, I should say that. I'm not trying to backtrack, but there is evidence that Inuit people helped the men of the expedition, and they were not given 2.1 million pounds. I do know that. In 1850, search parties found the remnants, so the same year that they were sent out, they found remnants of the winter camps on Beechey Island, as well as the graves of John Torrington, John Hartnell, and William Brain. Brain? Is that his name? Did I say that?
I don't know.
Hold on. Checking. Bane. Not Brain. Silly name. They also left the bodies there. They were like, you were buried here.
You will stay.
You will stay. In 1852, this is just a fun fact. A government-funded expedition was sent out. It was wildly unsuccessful. And I say wildly because 4 of their 5 ships were abandoned to the ice. And I guess the guy who led it was like court-martialed or something. He was just not good at this. But one of the abandoned ships was the HMS Resolute. It was later recovered, and wood from it was used to build 3 desks, one of which was presented to Rutherford B. Hayes by Queen Victoria.
Nice.
And it is still a popular option for the Oval Office today. So if you're ever president, you get to pick your desk for the Oval Office. You don't get to pick your office.
Can I pick something from IKEA?
Yes.
Because they've got some good desks.
What if you tried to pick your office? You're like, I don't want the oval one.
Do I have to work in here? The feng shui is all off.
I want one of the other ones.
Honestly, I feel like the president's probably not in the Oval Office all that much. He's either in meetings. He's probably mostly in the Oval Office for meetings and photo ops.
That's true.
Not to actually sit there and work.
It's true. But it would be cool if you could be like, this desk was built from an old ship that didn't rescue anyone and was found. Anyways.
Isn't that on like a National Treasure?
I feel like it was. When I was writing that, I was like, this sounds like something Nicolas Cage figured out with John Voight.
Yeah, sneaking into the Oval Office.
Yep. I might have to look that up.
I mean, if it's one of like 3 desks that you can choose from, then maybe it wasn't this desk. Maybe some other desk also has some sort of wonkadoodle history. But also, the thing that they rescued from, or not rescued, but stole from the desk, wasn't it like a wooden plank with symbols from like, I don't know, tribal peoples? Oh, yeah. You know, like nomadic Inuits.
Was that the thing that they just took a picture of with like the red light camera and then they threw it in the water? Because that's how you handle sacred things.
Sure.
Also,
this is why we need a producer.
I know. Also, if I'm thinking if it's from the first National Treasure, that's also the one where the movie started with them like finding a ship under the ice, like in the Arctic.
Okay.
Surprise. This is actually an episode about National Treasure.
Yeah. The Resolute Desk.
Yes, that's what it's called!
Are a safe place to store the City of Gold planks.
Oh my gosh. That should have been my fun fact. That it was in National Treasure. Man.
The Resolute Desk. A puzzle piece from the Resolute Desk. So this is not the first one.
Oh, it's not.
I don't think. Yeah, this is National Treasure Book of Secrets.
Okay. Would have been cooler if it was the first one, because the first one had the frozen ship. Man. Okay. Well, still cool that they involved frozen ships.
There's a picture of Obama sitting at the Resolute Desk.
Ooh, did he use it?
Well, seeing as how he's sitting at in the Oval Office.
What if you just moved it there for a photo op? He wouldn't do that. He's too nice.
Also, who's got time for that?
He wouldn't make someone move the desk in there just for a photo op.
Yep, the HMS Resolute was abandoned in the Arctic waterway in 1854 while searching for Sir John Franklin and his lost expedition. Hey, hey.
Hey.
Okay, so it was in the green room of the White House when Rutherford B. Hayes was... And then then he moved it to the president's office of the White House. So Rutherford Hayes... Garfield, Chester A. Arthur, Grover Cleveland, Benjamin Harrison, Grover Cleveland again, William McKinley, Teddy Roosevelt, and then also Teddy Roosevelt, Taft, Wilson, Harding, Coolidge, and Hoover. It then moved to the president's study.
Oh.
And then Franklin, Roosevelt, and Truman put it in the Oval study. And then there was a Truman renovation, stored in somewhere in New York City. And then Truman and Eisenhower had it in the broadcast room, which is now the office of the curator.
Dang.
Kennedy put it in the Oval Office.
Okay.
And then it went on a little tour, a little traveling exhibition.
Of course.
Was in the Smithsonian for a little bit.
Okay.
Another little exhibition. And then Carter, Reagan, and H.W. Bush had in the Oval Office.
Okay.
And then Bush put in the president's residence office for a little bit. And then Clinton, W., Obama, Trump, and Joe Biden all have had it in the Oval Office from 93 till present.
Cool. I like that some presidents were just like, not in here. We'll move it to a different room. That's cool.
I think a lot of first ladies probably moved it around. Like, there was the Truman renovation on that list.
Yeah, that definitely wasn't Harry's idea. Fun! Thanks for making my fun fact more fun.
Sorry. I did not mean to take over like that.
No, that was much...
I was just like, this reminds me of that bad movie I saw.
Hey, moderately okay movie.
Less good than the first movie.
Definitely less good than the first movie. But, you know.
But hey, the thing that I liked about National Treasure is that, you know, obviously it was fantasy, but there was still a whole lot of historical fact that it was rooted in.
Yeah.
So you learned things. Like, I forgot it was called the Resolute Desk until, like, that moment I was like, oh, wait, why is this ringing bells?
I like it because, you know, I really liked, I mean, this is like my guilty pleasure. I really liked, like, the Dan Brown books. But, like, those movies, I feel like, really took themselves way too seriously. Like, The Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons. I'm like, you guys gotta chill out, man. Cool it, Tom Hanks. I love ya. Cool it. You're taking this way too seriously. Do a Nicolas Cage thing. We all know this is bullshit. I love learning facts about art, especially in Italy. Take me on this journey with you. Give me Ewan McGregor as a priest. I love it. Don't be so serious about it. Make it fun. Make it fun for me. Tell me you're going to steal the Pope's headdress or something. Like, make it fun.
Do it, but make it fun.
Yeah. But like, yeah, I love learning about like, I mean that's like, it's like history but art for those, which was fun for me. So, all right, so that was the Resolute. In 1854, so this is where we're getting some controversy. In 1854, John Ray, who was one of the appointed leaders of one of the overland searches, he met an Inuk man, which I looked this up. Inuk is the singular term for Inuit. So okay. Inuit is like the plural term, and Inuk is
so glad we're saying Inuit and not Eskimo.
Yes.
Because no.
So he met an Inuk man on the Boothia Peninsula who told him that a party of 35 to 40 white men had starved to death at the mouth of the Back River. Another Inuk confirmed the story, and they were also able to show him artifacts from the crew that they had, including some silver forks and spoons that, like, I guess were, like, engraved or whatever, like, clearly belonged to crew members.
Yeah, no, I feel like a lot of times things like silverware was often like stamped with some sort of identification, either like a crest or a symbol, kind of like the wax seals.
Yeah.
Stuff like that was often stamped.
Yeah. Also smart to do for an expedition, because you can be like, if we find this, we know it's from you. They also told Ray of cannibalism that had happened among the crew. One source I read said that they offered some evidence of this. I don't know what that was. Obviously, I think it makes sense. Like, if you're dying of
bones.
Yeah, I don't know if they were able to show him that. Makes total sense, though. If you're dying of starvation, you've already got a bunch of dead people. I think we've said this before. If we're dying of starvation and I die first, you can eat me.
Yeah, same here. I've actually been to, when we were in Uruguay, we actually went to the museum about...
I thought you were going to be like, we actually did eat someone when we were there. I actually have had human flesh.
I'm all for exploratory cuisine. I'm going to draw the line. Actually, probably going to draw the line several steps before we even get to cannibalism.
Oh, yeah.
Not... there's lots of things that I'm not going to eat before I definitely don't eat people. But no, the soccer team, or the rugby team that crashed in the Andes famously did have to resort to cannibalism. There's a museum dedicated to everyone, the survivors and those lost in the crash. And it was really well done. It was one of those, like, we address it, but we're moving on. Like, we're not going to sensationalize it. Yeah. There was a whole hell of a lot more to their survival story.
Yeah.
This is one piece of it. It happened. Let's go.
Yeah.
Like, look at the other things. Focus on, this is where they were stuck. They could have gone these directions to get help. They did their own expeditions. And and like, this is how they were able to survive. This is how they cannibalized the plane. For all of the stuff that they were able to use, like tearing out wires and the upholstery on the seats became clothes. It was very well done.
And I think so many of them had like pretty horrific head injuries and were like continuing to like if I'm remembering correctly, because You're Wrong About did a really, really good episode detailing the whole thing. And I know they talked about people who had, like, really bad head injuries who, like, one guy I think had, like, basically his skull was just kind of, like, sitting loosely on top of his brain. But he just, like, once he was conscious and, like, he was just like, all right, and now I'm able to, like, work and I will make sure everyone else is surviving. Like, people had really bad injuries and were able to work. Like, did everything they could to
hold their
weight.
Preserve.
And it's a really good episode of You're Wrong About.
Just because I did go to the museum, I learned so much, and apparently we actually did get to briefly meet the proprietor of the museum, he's not from there. I think he was just very moved by the story and actually did spend a lot of time before even opening the museum talking to some of the survivors, but definitely he became very close with a lot of the survivors and non-survivors, like victims, I guess.
Yeah.
Their family and friends and whatnot, and basically did this, like, with their permission.
Yeah.
To let everyone know, like, there's more to the story than just this sensational piece. Like, what you were saying about how everyone pulled their weight and, just really show the harrowing thing. And, like, when they talked about it, they're like, look, yeah, it happened, but it was not an easy thing. They didn't immediately say, like, I'm hungry, Joe looks tasty.
Yeah.
It was this is a vote. It's got to be unanimous.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it took, I think, several votes before everyone was on board.
Yeah. So, John Ray, this guy, he goes back to England with these accounts that he has now learned from the Inuit. And people were not happy with what he is telling them. And in fact, Lady Franklin...
People often don't enjoy hearing the truth.
They really don't. Lady Franklin launched a smear campaign against him. And Charles Dickens wrote some really racist shit about the whole thing.
Of course.
Yeah, basically accused the Inuit people of killing the men of the Franklin expedition, and said all sorts of shit about, why we shouldn't be able to trust what they say, and Lady Franklin's whole thing was that he was trying to, sully their good names and how they were good Christian men and they would never do such a thing.
Did she know that her husband was dead at this point? Because he died. Like,
surely she would be
early on, but...
I mean, I feel like at this point you would assume we haven't found them. Mm-hmm. They are presumed dead. Yeah. And, like, I get you don't want to... I don't know, but...
It's not like the dude's saying, like, oh, yeah, no, your husband decided to just ditch this whole expedition thing and run off with an Inuit woman.
Yeah, and eat her baby. Like, it's not...
Yeah.
Nothing that... I would say nothing that they did was bad. Anything... I mean... I don't know.
It's just a harrowing tale of survival.
Yeah.
And...
Also,
not the survival.
Down, Charles Dickens. Like, use your talents for other things. Of course, in 2015, shocker to no one, forensic analysis of the bones that they have recovered confirmed these stories. Duh. Of course. Like, who's surprised by that? And, like, I'm sure they probably, with their forensics of the time, could confirm in their own way, this bone looks as if someone has
gnawed on it,
chewed on it, or extracted bone marrow from it, or cut it in such a way that it was, intentionally taken off a body. In 1855, a band of Inuit encountered James Anderson and James Stewart, who were just employees of the Hudson Bay Company. I don't really know who they were. English guys, whatever, white people. They were near the mouth of the Back River, and the Inuit told them of the group of white men who had starved to death along the coastline. I imagine they were like, oh, hey, what are you doing here?
Like, we had white dudes. We haven't seen white dudes since the other dudes that died here.
There was a group of you guys, like, a while back. They starved to death. Right over there. Were you with them?
Your countrymen.
Yeah. I feel like it was like, this is something a topic of shared interests.
Yeah. You're a white man. I've seen white men before.
Well, yeah, when you only have one thing in common to talk about.
Oh, I see you like toast.
Despite these reports, and I think there were more than just these two, but despite these reports, the Royal Navy refused to send any official search parties to the Back River to search for signs of the expedition, and they had officially declared the group dead in 1854, so a year before. They were just like, we think they're dead. And
they probably refused because they're like, yeah, that sounds legit, but we're not going to waste, resources on proving that these people died. Because, that's a believable story. Let's just accept it.
And, now it's no longer a search and rescue. It's, a recovery situation. In 1859, a search party that was privately funded by Lady Franklin found a document that was left in a cairn? Cairn. It contained 2 messages that were written by Crozier and Fitzjames. They had been written in May of 1847 and then April of 1848. So the last one was right before they abandoned the ships. Mm-hmm. So anyways, all you need to know is they would leave these notes and leave them in these cairns, essentially to say, we're okay, this is progress, so that if someone were to find them, they would have a record of...
Cairns are rock piles.
Thank you. I did not... I was... what I was picturing was the...
Like an urn?
I was actually picturing, either the
like a tube?
I was thinking the tube you get at the bank.
Yeah.
Or something you would bury for a time capsule.
Yeah, they're little piles of rocks, and
that makes more sense.
Lots of hippies like to do them out on hiking trails, and a lot of other people do them, but with non-native rocks. They'll bring rocks from other places and leave it, and there's just they got to be a point where there was a PSA for outdoors people, stop building these things. It's actually detrimental to the environment the way that you're displacing these rocks.
Oh, gotcha. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good to know. So these 2 messages are kind of how we know some of the information about how many crew members had died, how long they were trapped in the ice. Also, the search party found a lifeboat on the western side of King William Island that contained 2 skeletons, as well as some abandoned equipment, such as handkerchiefs, scented soaps, sponges, slippers, combs, and books.
Going back to when you said something about their trudging on land with various supplies, or I forget exactly what you said. That was foreshadowing for them.
They didn't
bringing soap and books.
Yeah, they're bringing a lot of stuff that they didn't.
Did they bring the good silverware, or did they?
Well, apparently yes.
The fine china on the boat.
Yeah, I don't know why they felt they needed to bring their slippers and their scented soaps with them. But someone died with them. In not 1969, in 1869, Arctic explorer Charles Francis Hall was led by local Inuit to a grave on King Edward Island that contained skeletal remains, and in 2009, these were determined to be that of Erebus Assistant Surgeon Harry Goodsir, and I think that he was the brother of the guy who discovered the first 3 bodies, in the initial search 19 years earlier. They also told Hall of 4 white men that had been seen trying to go south in 1851, so 3 years after whatever. Mm-hmm. And that would be the last verified sighting of any members of the Franklin group. So that's a long time to survive after you've abandoned your ships. And Hall's I think a pretty okay guy for a white guy in Inuit territory. He would eventually gather hundreds of pages of Inuit testimony with the help of 2 Inuit guides. I am sorry for how I am about to pronounce these names. Their names were Epirvik and Takliktuk.
Sure.
Okay. They were husband and wife. So some of these accounts were of Inuit visiting and boarding the 2 ships several times while they were stuck in the pack ice near King William Island. Mm-hmm. In the winter of 1849 and 50, so after the ships had become death camps, Apparently, Inuit boarded one of the ships and saw crew members still alive, and the crew members saw them also, but didn't talk to them and didn't try to stop them when they were like, we're just going to take some of the stuff off the ship that we need. In the summer of 1849, there were accounts of a joint caribou hunt by some of the crew members joined some Inuit in a caribou hunt. Hall said that he doubted the story. I don't know why. I think it sounds great. Also, because in this account, there was a non-Inuit dog, Neptune, who was also taking part in the hunt. And this is where I say that I think that Neptune found a nice Inuit family.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And
lived out the rest of his days well taken care of.
Yes. That's what I believe. And I think he had the time of his life on a caribou hunt. This is also where we get the account of Crozier dying in the winter of 49 and 50. Mm-hmm. And apparently he got a burial with full military honors, because that is something to expend your energy on.
Mm-hmm. That's very important when you are trying to survive in the Arctic.
Yes. So the Inuit also kept telling people that the ships had sunk off the coast of King William Island and at a place that was called Ugjulik, which I don't know if I'm saying right. I think it's also called something different today. Modern day, it is Wilmot and Crampton Bay, also known as, I think, Terror Bay, for the reason that the ship sank there. They had even shown Hall on a map, like, where the ships sank. They were like, oh yeah, here and here. And Hall, like, showed it to other English people. But they were like,
Picture it didn't happen.
They were like, we don't believe you and we're not going to look. They're like, we don't believe you and we don't care. So.
What's the point of looking?
This advice, like, the eyewitness accounts from the Inuit who literally saw the ships and knew where they were, was ignored literally until 2014. When a guy named Ryan Harris, who was with Parks Canada, conducted a search in Wilmot and Crampton Bay. And he found the wreckage of the Erebus. So I guess that was Erebus Bay. And then the following week, the Terror was discovered off the southwestern coast of King William Island by the Arctic Research Foundation. In 1984 and 86, so like between those 2 years, a guy named Dr. John Beatty, who was an anthropologist at Alberta University, exhumed the bodies of the 3 men who were buried at Beechey Island. So John Torrington, John Harkness, and William Bain. And he was just like...
Not William Brain?
Not William Brain. He was left alone. And he was doing this, like, for scientific reasons.
I would hope so.
Well, I mean, like, I don't know. I don't know what the other reason would be.
An anthropological study.
Yes, thank you. So, John Torrington was the first one they dug up, and his body was, like, super well preserved. They said he was in a casket, but also in a block of ice. And just looked fresh as a daisy. His lungs showed evidence of tuberculosis and emphysema, although he worked in the coal room. So...
I wonder why he would have some lung damage there.
That was probably it. They determined his cause of death was pneumonia, but they also found high levels of lead in his bones and hair. And then John Harkness and William Bain also were both determined to have died of tuberculosis, but they also both had high levels of lead in their bones and hair. So for
Going back to that faulty soldering, huh?
Yes. So for a long time, lead poisoning was thought to have been a major contributor to, like, the demise of the crew, obviously caused by this poor canning process. However, a 2013 study determined essentially... Well, okay, let me read this quote first. quote, the levels of lead present in the crew members' bones had been consistent during their lives, and there was no isotopic difference between lead concentrated within older and younger bone materials. So essentially there was not a spike in lead levels.
They just had a steady stream of lead exposure.
Yeah.
Throughout their lives.
Yeah, so like lead was everywhere. They had a bunch of...
Their crib was painted with lead paint. The walls were lead paint.
Lead in the water, all that stuff. And so a 2016 study that I guess was done like in tandem or whatever suggested that it was a zinc deficiency due to lack of meat. Though I don't know what happened to all the meat that they brought with them. So I guess a lack of zinc would cause you to have a suppressed immune system. And then according to this, so you'd be like more susceptible to like tuberculosis, which obviously is like extremely contagious. And then as your body weakened, it would start to break down like fat and muscle and bone. And when it breaks down your bones that are full of lead, all of that lead gets into your bloodstream, which would lead to like the higher levels than normal. Okay.
Effects of lead poisoning.
Yes. So also, remember everyone had symptoms of scurvy, but they were drinking their lemon juice. But lemon juice can ferment when it's just left out. And so there is a theory that the crew had begun to boil the lemon juice to prevent fermentation. However, fun fact, boiling lemon juice destroys the ascorbic acid, which is the vitamin C. So if you boil lemon juice, it's not going to do jack shit for scurvy. So they may have just been drinking boiled lemon juice and not getting any vitamin C and still getting scurvy. Another, my favorite theory, is that they were getting botulism because the canned foods are not off the hook here. So botulism is a toxin that attacks the nerves. And according to the CDC, quote, improperly home-canned, preserved, or fermented foods can provide the right conditions for spores to grow and make botulinum toxin. And this can cause muscle paralysis and nerve damage. So muscle paralysis is going to cause like your lung muscles to stop working. So you're going to have...
Heart's a muscle.
Yeah. So all your muscles will slowly stop working. Difficulty breathing, swallowing, all that stuff. And so obviously if it's untreated, you're going to die. Even if it is treated, you're in the hospital for like a really long time with botulism poisoning.
See, I really want to get into home canning, but I'm also very nervous about it, so.
You should be because of botulism, apparently.
You're afraid of the ocean. Critters are afraid of the ocean. I'm afraid of botulism.
You're afraid of canned goods. And then other miscellaneous things that almost definitely contributed to their death. Them taking the western side of King William Island. The western side of King William Island apparently is infamously more like unforgiving than the eastern side. The eastern side apparently regularly clears in the summer months, while the western side does not. And then also because they were like sailors and used to like sailing and not traveling over land, they weren't very good at traveling over land. So they brought all this crap they didn't need, like soap and lifeboat. Like someone was like, they had all this dead weight of lifeboats. They were just hauling around with them for no reason.
Just making life harder than it needed to be.
I don't have a good way to end except to tell you that apparently AMC did a show called Terror that is about the Franklin expedition, but they do it from the perspective of the Inuit, and apparently they did a really good job not only of presenting it, but also of consulting with Inuit people and getting Inuit actors and stuff, and presenting it as the expeditioners are interlopers on the Inuit community and not the other way around as it's often presented. Yeah. So that's, I'm not going to say on AMC because it was done a couple years ago. I think you can rent it on like Amazon Prime, but it's called Terror.
Okay.
And I will be trying to find it. But that is the story of the Lost Franklin expedition.
That was fun. I enjoyed that.
I'm glad because as I was finishing it, I was like, this is not canon.
Not super on brand,
to
but
our,
still fun, still interesting.
Tell everyone our socials, please.
If you want to see photos of Sir Franklin and James Fitzjames, you can check out our Facebook and Instagram, search The Tales We Tell. If you want to see photos but don't do the social media, check out our website at thetaleswetellpodcast.com. And if you want to support us, get yourself some sweet, sweet swag, check out our Redbubble store, search The Tales We Tell. We've got a couple different Legos. We got logos. You could probably put them on Legos. And if you want to support us but you don't need the stuff, become patrons at patreon.com, search The Tales We Tell. All patrons get early access, commercial-free listening, random bonus content, and anytime we do, new stickers, you get love notes and stickers and undying love and affection.
Yay! And I promise I'll be back. We'll be back next week with something. I'm not going to promise it'll be
something. We got something.
We're going to be back next week with something, is what we'll promise. So we'll see you guys then. Bye.
Wait, hold on. As Critter says. Bye.
Bye.